Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're plunging into a topic that's, well, it's not just trending, it's absolutely essential for any forward-thinking business, especially those navigating logistics and supply chains. We're talking ESG, environmental, social, and governance. And our specific mission today is to untangle the Carbon Disclosure Project, or CDP. For many, it looms large, seems complex, a massive undertaking, maybe. But we're here to cut through that complexity. We want to give you a clear, actionable roadmap, maybe even a strategic shortcut to mastering the CDP reporting process. We're drawing deep on insights from the carbon emissions measurement specialists at GLEC. They've guided countless companies through this very journey.
Yeah, that's right. And what's fascinating here is that CDP, it's moved far beyond being just another compliance checkbox. It really has. It's transformed into a critical strategic tool for truly understanding, managing, and maybe even leveraging your climate impact. And increasingly, look, it's a non-negotiable requirement from investors, from customers, even potential employees. GLEC's experience repeatedly shows that a structured, step-by-step approach can be the game changer. It turns what often feels like a daunting regulatory hurdle into actually a significant strategic advantage. So this deep dive will provide you with precisely that, a practical, no-nonsense guide to achieving CDP's success.
Okay, so if you're listening and you're looking to not just participate in CDP, but truly excel, where do you begin? Our journey starts with laying a rock-solid foundation. Let's unpack the first crucial step in building a successful CDP response: clear goal setting and scope definition. Now, you need clear goals. And for that, we always recommend the SMART criteria. Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. For instance, a really effective goal isn't just improve our CDP score. That's a bit vague, right? It might be something like achieve a CDP climate change A grade by 2026, improving our score by 20% from our current C grade, to meet key customer demands and strengthen our overall ESG management with the mission completed by September 2026. See? It's precise, isn't it?
Absolutely. It gives you something concrete to aim for. And while SMART goals are your compass, defining your scope is your map. This isn't just ticking a box, it's paramount. You need to ensure you're measuring what truly matters for your business. This involves setting your organizational boundaries for reporting. Are we talking domestic operations, international, or both? And then choosing an integrated approach like operational control, financial control, or equity share. That determines exactly which entities and emissions fall under your reporting umbrella. But here's a crucial insight GLEC often sees. Companies that define their scope too narrowly, they miss out on significant risk identification. I mean, did you know that for many logistics companies, Scope 3 emissions, things like freight handled by third parties, can be upwards of 80% of their total footprint? 80%. Missing that in your initial scope isn't just a reporting error, it's a huge blind spot for climate risk and opportunity. You also need to establish materiality criteria. That basically means identifying the most significant climate-related issues specific to your business and your stakeholders. This makes sure you're focusing your efforts where they'll have the biggest impact. And then, carefully documenting any exclusions with clear justifications is key.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So once your goals are crystal clear and your scope is meticulously defined, the next critical element is people. Ensuring you have the right people driving this initiative. That leads us directly to step 2, dedicated team formation and role allocation. CDP is fundamentally a cross-functional marathon. It's not a solo sprint by the sustainability department. A dedicated task force, or TF team, is absolutely essential.
Precisely. And it's not just about assigning tasks, it's about embedding responsibility across the organization, really embedding it. Typically, this team includes a C-level executive, someone from the senior leadership, as the overall leader. They provide strategic direction and budget approval, which signals that crucial top-down commitment. Then you have a project manager, usually from the sustainability team, overseeing coordination, managing the CDP platform itself, and just keeping everything on track. But the real engine room, that's the various data collection teams. Think facilities management for all your energy and water usage data. Purchasing, who are crucial for raw material data and supplier info. Logistics, tracking transportation distances and fuel consumption. Finance, obviously, for cost and investment data. And IT for system integration, making sure the data flows smoothly. And finally, you need robust review and approval teams. People from legal, investor relations, and marketing. They ensure external readiness, compliance, and that your narrative aligns with public perception. It's a real collective effort.
Got it. A whole team effort. So with your team assembled and your mission established, you can't just jump into collecting data blindly. That sounds like a recipe for disaster. You need to understand your starting line. Where are you now? That brings us to step 3, current status diagnosis and gap analysis. Before you start measuring, you truly need to understand where you currently stand. Our sources highlight a very practical tool here, a data maturity matrix.
Yeah, this matrix is a fantastic diagnostic tool. It really helps you pinpoint where you are. It assesses your current level across several key areas. For data collection systems, for example, are you operating manually with spreadsheets? Are things partly systemized? Or do you have a fully integrated platform? For data quality, are you mostly relying on estimates? Or do you have, say, 70% actual data? Or even 95%? Which is the goal, really? What about verification levels? Is it just internal checks, partial external verification, or full third-party verified? It also looks at your reporting scope. Are you covering just scope 1 and 2, some scope 3, or ideally all material scope 3 categories? And the frequency, is it annual, quarterly, or maybe even real-time data collection? What's most useful here is performing a thorough gap analysis. That means looking at your previous CDP scores, if you have them, benchmarking against industry best practices to see where you stand competitively, checking essential criteria fulfillment, those are the must-haves from CDP, and then prioritizing areas for improvement based on where the biggest gains can be made. If we connect this to the bigger picture, knowing your current state is truly the indispensable first step to knowing exactly where you need to go. You can't chart a course without knowing your starting point.
That matrix sounds incredibly practical. What's like the most common aha moment companies have when they first use it? And what's one crucial area they often overlook in their self-assessment?
A common aha moment is probably realizing just how much data they already have, but it's completely siloed across different departments, spreadsheets everywhere. The matrix helps them visualize the connections or lack thereof. What's often overlooked? I'd say the verification levels. Many companies think internal checks are enough, but CDP and stakeholders, investors, customers increasingly expect robust third-party verification to ensure credibility. It's a crucial step to building trust. Which leads us perfectly into step 4. Data collection system establishment. Here's where it gets really interesting. How do you gather all this information efficiently and accurately? This involves a 3-phase data collection framework.
Okay, a 3-phase framework. That sounds like a systematic approach to tackle what can feel like an avalanche of data. Can you walk us through those phases?
Absolutely. Think of it as building your data infrastructure piece by piece. Phase 1, what we call data inventory, typically takes, say, 1 to 2 months. This is where you list all the necessary data points, map out your data sources, who owns what information, assign clear collection cycles and owners, and crucially, set quality standards right from the outset. Get everyone on the same page. Phase 2, collection process standardization, maybe takes 2 to 3 months. This is about making it repeatable and reliable. You develop standard forms, clear manuals, robust verification processes, and establish error correction procedures. It's about building a system you can trust year after year. Then phase 3, system automation, which can take 3 to 6 months, sometimes longer depending on complexity. This is where you really leverage technology, integrating with your existing ERP systems, exploring IoT sensors for real-time monitoring, building cloud-based platforms, and developing dynamic real-time dashboards to visualize your progress.
Right, making the data work for you. And within that data collection, you've got the different scopes of emissions. Let's break those down, starting with scope 1 and 2. Those are often seen as the more straightforward ones, relatively speaking.
Right, relatively. Scope 1 covers your direct emissions, essentially. Anything your company directly owns or controls that emits greenhouse gases. This includes fixed combustion, like from boilers in your facilities, mobile combustion from your vehicle fleet fuel records, company cars, trucks, process emissions, which are released directly from your manufacturing processes themselves, and fugitive emissions, like refrigerant top-ups from air conditioning units or leaks. These are the emissions you generally have the most direct control over. Scope 2 covers indirect emissions from purchased energy. This is typically electricity usage, often derived from utility bills, maybe from a major provider like KEPC, that's the Korea Electric Power Corporation, or directly from your own meter data if you have submetering. It also includes purchased steam or heat if you buy that from external suppliers, check the invoices. And importantly, renewable energy use with REC purchase proofs, that's renewable energy certificates, to document it. And then applying the correct regional emission factors to convert that energy use into CO2 equivalents. That factor part is crucial for accuracy.
Okay, scope 1 and 2 seem manageable with the right internal systems. Now, scope 3, other indirect emissions. This is where things get significantly more complex, isn't it? But also increasingly important for a comprehensive climate strategy. You mentioned it requires approaching 15 specific categories, and it can be a massive challenge.
It truly is, yeah. Because scope 3 covers your entire value chain, both upstream your suppliers and downstream your customers and product end of life. It requires deep dives into areas often outside your direct control, touching on everything from suppliers to how your products are used. Let's briefly touch on some of these 15 categories just to give a flavor. Upstream first. Purchased goods and services. Emissions embedded in everything you buy, from raw materials to office supplies. This often requires deep dives into supplier data or using life cycle assessment, LCA, databases. Big task. Capital goods. Emissions from the big investments like machinery, buildings, or vehicles you acquire. Think embodied carbon. Fuel and energy-related activities, not in Scope 1 or 2. Think well-to-tank emissions, the upstream emissions from extracting, processing, and transporting the fuels you use even before they reach your facility. Upstream transportation and distribution. Emissions from transporting goods you purchase from your suppliers to your facilities. Often needs logistics partner data or calculations like distance times weight, waste generated in operations. Emissions from the disposal and treatment of waste your operations produce. You'll need data from your waste processors for this. Business travel. Emissions from flights, car rentals, hotel stays for your employees, usually tracked via travel management systems, hopefully. Employee commuting. Emissions from your employees' daily travel to and from work. This can often be estimated through commute surveys. Upstream leased assets. Emissions from assets you lease in and operate, especially where the lessor doesn't report their own emissions.
Okay, wow. That's 8 categories just covering the upstream side. That's already a huge amount to track. What about the downstream categories after your product leaves your control?
Indeed, the downstream side is just as critical, sometimes even more so, depending on your business. You've got downstream transportation and distribution, emissions from transporting your sold products to your customers, again, meeting logistics data. Processing of sold products, emissions that occur if your customers need to further process your products before the end user gets them. Use of sold products. This is often huge for many companies. Think emissions from the actual use of your products by end consumers, like the electricity consumption of an appliance you sell over its lifetime. End-of-life treatment of sold products. Emissions from the disposal or recycling of your products once they're no longer used. Landfill emissions, incineration, recycling processes. Downstream leased assets. Emissions from assets you own but lease out to others. Franchises, emissions from operations of your franchise businesses, if you have them, and investments. Primarily for financial institutions, this refers to the emissions associated with their investment and lending portfolios, a massive category for them. So, this raises an incredibly important question, the elephant in the room maybe. How do you manage the sheer volume and diversity of data required for all 15 Scope 3 categories, especially when so much of it comes from external sources that you don't directly control?
That's a truly crucial point, and it's where many companies, especially in logistics and supply chain, face their biggest hurdle, right? Getting that supplier data, the downstream data. What insights does GLEC offer here? How do you get your arms around Scope 3?
Well, GLEC's experience suggests a multi-pronged approach. You can't boil the ocean, as they say. Firstly, prioritize. Seriously, don't try to tackle all 15 categories perfectly from day one. Focus on the 2-3 Scope 3 categories most material to your business initially, the ones with the largest impact or highest risk. Start there. Secondly, leverage technology. Digital platforms are becoming indispensable for Scope 3. They can help automate data requests, streamline collection from potentially hundreds or thousands of suppliers, and standardize the input formats. Makes it manageable. Thirdly, and perhaps most importantly, build relationships. Engage your value chain partners, suppliers, logistics providers, customers early and often. Educate them on why you need this data. Collaborate on collection methods. It's key to getting accurate data, even if it starts with well-documented estimates based on industry averages or spend data. And this whole deep dive into data integrity then leads us directly to step 5, data quality management system establishment. Because, frankly, getting a high CDP score, building credibility, it hinges entirely on data accuracy and completeness. You need strong data quality principles baked into your process.
Right, garbage in, garbage out, as they say. So how do we build that bulletproof system to keep the data squeaky clean? What are the key principles we need to follow?
There are 5 key principles GLEC emphasizes. Think RACC key, maybe. Relevance isn't explicitly one here, but accuracy, completeness, consistency, transparency, timeliness. First, accuracy. This means rigorously cross-referencing raw data, meticulously checking for unit conversion errors, kilograms to tons, kilowatt to MWH, etc., and intelligently detecting and verifying any outliers or anomalies. Does this number look right? Second, completeness. The goal is to minimize missing data, ideally aiming for over 95% actual measured data over time. You need to document your estimation methodologies clearly if you have gaps and explain any unavoidable gaps. Third, consistency. You must maintain consistency in your time series data year over year. Use the same boundaries, same methodologies. If methodologies do change, you need to recalculate previous year's data for comparability and explain why. Fourth, transparency, publicly disclosing your calculation methodologies, stating your assumptions clearly, and indicating uncertainty levels. This builds trust with CDP and your stakeholders. Fifth, timeliness, adhering to internal deadlines, like monthly data collection, conducting quarterly internal reviews to catch issues early, and managing annual external verification schedules effectively. Don't leave it all to the last minute. These principles are your bedrock for credible reporting.
Okay, RACCT, accuracy, completeness, consistency, transparency, timeliness. Got it. So with impeccable data in hand, the next challenge is presenting it effectively. It's not just a data dump. That moves us on to step 6, CDP questionnaire writing strategy. This isn't just data entry. You framed it as strategic storytelling. And CDP questions are divided into several key modules, right?
Indeed. Storytelling is a good way to put it. These modules are where your data comes alive with narrative, context, and strategy. They include governance, where you describe your board's oversight of climate issues. Are they actively involved? Are there incentive schemes tied to sustainability performance for executives? What are the clear roles and responsibilities within your organization for climate? Then there's risks and opportunities. This increasingly utilizes the TCFD framework, that's the task force on climate-related financial disclosures. It's become the gold standard, really. Here, you need to quantify the potential financial impacts of climate risks and opportunities and specify the time horizon, short, medium, and long term. Next, strategy. This is where you present your scenario analysis results. How resilient is your strategy under different climate futures? You detail your transition plans for a low-carbon economy, and crucially, you link these directly to your investment plans. Show me the money, basically. And finally, goals and performance. This involves setting ambitious targets, preferably SBTI, that's Science-Based Targets Initiative aligned targets. You provide regular progress updates against those targets, and you outline clear improvement plans if you happen to miss your targets. Honesty is important there, too. What really stands out here, what CDP rewards, is the need to go beyond just presenting the numbers. You need to weave them into a compelling, coherent narrative that showcases your commitment, your strategy, and your actual progress.
That's a fantastic point about the narrative. Can you give us an example? Perhaps a common mistake companies make in their storytelling, or conversely, a brilliant way you've seen a company connect their data to their broader strategy effectively.
Yeah, a common mistake is just regurgitating data points within each module without connecting the dots between modules. Like, they might state their Scope 1 emissions have decreased in the performance section, but fail to link that back to the electric vehicle investments mentioned in the strategy section or the board oversight discussed in governance. It feels disconnected. A brilliant example. I saw one company, a manufacturer, link their investment in on-site solar panels, affecting Scope 2, directly to their TCFD risk assessment for rising energy prices and to documented customer demand for greener products into their long-term capital expenditure plan. They quantified the expected ROI and the emissions saved. That's a coherent story. So for high scores, remember these tips from GLEC. Provide specific company examples, don't be generic. Use quantitative data wherever possible. Back up your claims. Ensure consistent story flows across all modules. Be future-oriented, balance past performance with concrete future plans. And always, always attach supporting evidence, policies, reports, third-party certifications. Prove it.
Excellent tips. Prove it. Even with the best data and a compelling narrative, though, a final check is absolutely non-negotiable before you hit that submit button. That brings us to step 7, internal review and quality check. Before submitting, a thorough internal review is absolutely critical to prevent errors, maybe catch inconsistencies, refine your story, and ultimately boost your score potential. You mentioned this isn't just one person reading it over, but a rigorous 3-stage review process.
Precisely. It needs multiple layers of eyes. Stage 1 is staff self-check. This is where the data owners and people actually writing the responses verify the accuracy of their sections, ensure they fully understood the CDP questions, and confirm no essential items or required data points are missed. Basic hygiene check. Stage 2 is department head cross-check. This involves managers from different contributing departments reviewing the whole response or relevant sections. They check for consistency across departments. Does finance data align with operations data? They ensure alignment with the overall strategic message, and they do a final risk assessment. Are we comfortable with what we're disclosing? And stage 3 is executive final approval. This is usually the C-level sponsor or a designated senior leader. They ensure the final submission is suitable for public disclosure, aligns perfectly with the overall company strategy and external communications, and they give the final sign-off. And as part of this whole process, using a checklist is highly recommended. Confirm all mandatory questions are answered. Check attachment sizes and formats are correct. Simple mistakes can happen. Make sure improvements from the prior year are clearly highlighted. Ensure all the essential criteria identified in the gap analysis are met. And crucially, double-check that any third-party verification reports are attached correctly.
That multi-stage review sounds thorough. It really minimizes the chance of errors. And once it's submitted, it's not over, is it? You don't just breathe a sigh of relief and forget about it for 11 months. CDP is clearly not a one-off task, but an ongoing journey of improvement. Which brings us to step 8, monitoring and continuous improvement. It really requires embedding it into an annual management cycle.
Absolutely. It's an ongoing commitment, a continuous loop. This cycle typically runs something like this. January through March is generally for preparation and planning. You're analyzing your previous year's results and feedback from CDP, setting improvement plans for the next cycle. And importantly, securing the necessary budget and resources. April through June is prime time for data collection. Finalizing the previous calendar year's complete data set, conducting any third-party verification activities, and actively addressing any data gaps identified during the planning phase. July through September is focused on drafting and submission. The CDP Online Response System, the ORS, usually opens mid-June or so. Drafting happens throughout July and August. Final internal reviews and approvals leading to submission, usually mid to late September. Check the specific deadline. And finally, October through December is for evaluation and feeding back into the next cycle. The score announcement typically comes in December. You analyze your score, digest the feedback, celebrate successes, identify weaknesses, and start planning improvements for the next year. It's a continuous loop of learning and refining.
That annual cycle really emphasizes the ongoing nature. Now, looking further ahead, to truly stay ahead of the curve in this space, relying solely on manual processes and spreadsheets just won't cut it long term, will it? Digital technologies seem key to really transforming your CDP approach and broader ESG management. So let's talk about the final step. Step 9, digital transformation and innovation.
This is really where we see the most exciting evolution, moving beyond just reporting to truly integrated management. GLEC often talks about a roadmap here involving 3 progressive stages. First, digitization. This is the foundational step. Moving from paper documents and scattered files to digital records. Shifting from manual data input in spreadsheets to more automated collection methods. Consolidating individual files into integrated databases. Just getting your information into a structured digital format. Second, digital transformation. This is where you start leveraging those digital assets to create new value and insights. This could involve deploying IoT sensors, Internet of Things, for real-time monitoring of energy use in facilities or emissions from your vehicle fleet. Using AI, artificial intelligence, for advanced data analysis, identifying trends, predicting future impacts, maybe even optimizing logistics routes, and potentially exploring technologies like blockchain for enhanced data reliability and creating immutable audit trails, especially across complex supply chains. Third, the ultimate goal for many, an integrated platform, establishing a comprehensive ESG integrated management system. This isn't just a reporting tool anymore. It links potentially the entire supply chain, provides real-time dashboards for operational managers, and facilitates dynamic, almost automated reporting. This really emphasizes how technology can not only streamline the reporting process, but profoundly enhance efficient ESG management overall, making it proactive and predictive, rather than just reactive and historical.
That roadmap really paints a picture of a much more proactive, data-driven, and integrated future for ESG and CDP.
Very powerful. So, pulling this all together, what does this mean for you, our listener, as you approach CDP? Let's tackle some common practical questions that practitioners often have. First, a fundamental one, timing. When should you actually start preparing for the CDP cycle?
Yeah, good question. Ideally, you should begin planning and preparing at least 6 months in advance of the submission deadline. That gives you time to gather data, coordinate internally, and write the responses thoughtfully. But if it's your very first time responding, or if you're aiming for a really ambitious high grade like an A or A, it's highly recommended to start a full year ahead. That gives you the runway to establish all the necessary processes, systems, and data flows comfortably without a last-minute rush.
Okay, plan ahead, especially the first time. Next question. Is external consulting a necessity, or can companies realistically handle this entirely in-house? Look, it's not strictly mandatory. Many companies do manage it internally, especially after the first few years. However, If you're a first-time respondent, or if you're really aiming for that coveted high grade, an A or A- getting expert assistance can be incredibly efficient and effective. Working with a CDP Gold-accredited provider, like GLEC for instance, can significantly boost your chances of success. They have specialized knowledge of the scoring methodology, industry benchmarks, and best practices. It can be a very worthwhile investment.
Makes sense. Leverage expertise if you need it. And what about data gaps? What if your data is insufficient, particularly for Scope 3, or you're just starting out and don't have perfect numbers? Is that a complete showstopper?
No, not at all. CDP understands that data collection, especially for Scope 3, is a journey and can be challenging. You can certainly use estimation methodologies based on spend data, industry averages, proxy data, etc. But it's absolutely crucial to clearly document those estimation methods and the underlying rationale and assumptions. Be transparent about what's estimated versus what's measured. The goal, and what CDP wants to see evidence of, should always be to progressively increase the proportion of actual measured data over time. Show improvement year on year.
That's reassuring. It's a journey, not perfection from day one. Well, this deep dive into the 9-step CDP process, drawing from GLEC's extensive expertise, really shows that while it might seem incredibly complex at first glance, it's entirely manageable with a systematic, thoughtful approach. And the incredible bonus, as you pointed out, is that establishing a robust data collection system for CDP also provides a fantastic foundation for other ESG disclosures. TCFD, maybe GRI, upcoming regulations. It gives you double the impact and efficiency across your entire sustainability reporting landscape.
Absolutely. That foundational work pays dividends elsewhere. And I think what's most important, the key takeaway maybe, is viewing CDP not merely as a compliance obligation, but as a genuine strategic opportunity. An opportunity to profoundly enhance your company's sustainability performance, its resilience in the face of climate change, and its reputation. Systematic carbon management, driven by the CDP process, can lead to significant operational cost savings through efficiency, much better risk management identifying those vulnerabilities we talked about, and it can even unlock entirely new business opportunities and competitive advantage if you hadn't considered before. Which leads me to a final thought, perhaps a question for you, our listener. How might applying these systematic carbon management principles, the structured approach we've discussed, uncover unexpected efficiencies, cost savings, or even new market advantages within your own operations or supply chain that you haven't really explored yet?
That's a powerful question. Shifting the perspective from burden to opportunity. Finding the hidden value. For you, our listeners, maybe what's a small, tangible step you can take today after listening to this to start looking for those opportunities within your own sphere of influence? Perhaps it's just asking a deeper question about a specific supplier's emissions performance, or looking at your own fleet or facility energy data through a new critical lens. Where could you start? We really hope this deep dive has provided you with the clarity, the structure, and maybe the inspiration to tackle your own ESG and CDP journey with confidence. Thank you for joining us on the deep dive.